Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Job City's Learn to Learn. Today, we have a very special guest speaker. Her name is Thais. She's going to be talking about Material Design React Components Library for Rapid UI Development based on Google's open source design system. If you have any questions or comments regarding this topic, please feel free to leave them in our chat. We will be answering them towards the end of the session. So without further ado, Thais, take it away.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Tatiana, for the introduction. Today, we're gonna deep dive into Material UI, a popular React component library based on Google's Material Design. In this presentation, we'll cover several key aspects of MUI and how to leverage it effectively in your React projects. Here's an overview of the topics we will be discussing. We will clarify the relationship between MUI, Material UI, and Material Design, and how they fit into React development ecosystem. Let's explore the factors you should consider when deciding if MUI is ideal fit for your project, and see some code examples demonstrating how to team MUI components and explore different stylings and approaches. Let's find out how to integrate TypeScript with MUI for better type safety and improved developer experience. I will showcase the very useful default props offered by MUI for easy styling and address some potential limitations of the library. Finally, I will show how Storybook can be empowered to us to document the customized MUI components. By the end of the presentation, I hope I can give you an understanding of MUI capabilities and how to leverage it in your React project. So let's get started and find out how to use MUI for building beautiful and efficient user interface. Material UI is an open source React library with pre-built production-ready components that implements Google Material Design. In the beginning, MUI and Material UI were the same thing. Now, MUI is the company and organization behind some open source projects like Base UI, MUIX, template, and some design kits. So now, Material UI is just one of their MUI products. You will see that Material UI and MUI are often used as synonymous and general, although it's not exactly the same thing. Material UI library was created to implement the Google's Material Design that was launched in 2014 and is now an open source system, meaning anyone can use and contribute to it. It's widely used on Google products like Android, Chrome OS, and many popular apps. Now it's time to focus on the Google's Material Design. What it is? It's a set of guidelines, components, and tools that helps developers and designers to build user interfaces that are beautiful, usable, and consistent across pages and platforms. Here are some key features of material design. They have focused on usability. Their priority is clear information hierarchy and intuitive interactions to make apps easy to use and has a flexible system and can be adapted to different device sizes and screen resolutions. Perfect to people like me who love some patterns. The material theming allow many customizations, but keeping a consistent visual language between the pages and platforms. It uses familiar physical materials to create deep effects and a sense of realism in the digital interface. This includes elements like lighting, shadows, and grids. A very good example is the paper component that is made to look like a real paper, the most as possible. So it has shadows to look like a 3D real paper in top of a table, for example, and you can use it as a box, as a card, and put almost any component inside to give the experience of looking into a paper with information inside. They really try to bring real world reference to the digital. Now coming back to the React library, we can use Material Y components with other MUI components packages. But with these other packages, we will need to style them to follow the design system. The same with any unstyled components libraries you want to include in your project or even create your own. And the nice part is that you can use material design theming on them. We'll see how this works later. The main Material Y package currently implements Material Design 2. And interesting news that the latest version of Google's design system is already released. The Material Design 3 or Material U implementation is a work in progress from MUI. Target to release and late this year will be Material Y V7. On this slide, I have placed some QR codes for the main documentations of the three, Material Y, MUI, and Material Design. If you want to learn a little bit more about them, always remember that documentation is our best friend in development. It's the best place to find updated information and also see workarounds to fix problems and errors that may show up in our projects, and to find good instructions on how to make best use of these products. Now that we know the difference between these three and what they can be useful for, let's see when we should actually use them or not in our projects. Material Y is a very opinionative component library because it's based on a specific design system. It is important to consider that the components will have a predefined look and behavior, and making big change to them requires more effort compared to using an in-style component library. However, this does not mean that the customization is difficult with Material Y. We can easily make changes by creating a theme where we can set color, fonts, spacing, breakpoints, shapes, and much more. But the main look and behavior of Material Y components will be similar to Google's products. Like, therefore, before using Material Y, it's crucial to evaluate the design system and consider that what aspect you want to keep and what you need to change. If the required changes are extensive, it may be better to consider using a different library. The advantage of using Material Design and Material Y is leveraging the pre-built system, saving time and effort in customizing everything from scratch. We all know that this can be very costly and time consuming. Material Y provides good component with a consistent look, accessibility features, multiple built-in variations, and helpful utilities. Designers can also access these components for Adobe XD, Sketch, and Figma from the Material Design website, allowing them to quickly create new layouts with these components. Here are some guidelines to follow on this decision of using or not MUI. Before using Material Y, check first with the designers to ensure it aligns with the visual identity of the company. Collaborate with the product team to explore the library and the design system so they can have an idea of how new pages can look like. Check if the required components for your project are already developed by Material Y team. If the designer and the product wants more freedom from Material Y guidelines, is is it still possible to use MUI products? In this case, the approach maybe should be using base UI components. That is also from MUI. They have a more freestyling and behavior approach there. But the cost here to create your own brand and project design system can be a lot higher, and probably the development and the design deliveries would take a lot longer. Something to keep always in mind. So let's go now to the code. we can see here like how it's like the first thing you should do when you after you install the material Y in your project is going to styling the theme and applying to your project. So the first image shows the 14 properties, base properties that Materialwise provides today for us that we can change this data inside. But if you don't want to change everything, like you don't want to set every single property, you don't need to. You can set up just the few ones you want, and the rest going to be using the material design default recommended props. And inside of these 14 props, you have a lot other props that inside of like a lot of children's with different props. And all these props affect the team. And you can to add new props to this 14. You can put how many you want, and you can use these properties inside of your components inside of your application. In the second image, I show how to create the theme. So you can use these functions provided by Material Y, and you pass all the props you want to change and the new props you want to add. You add here. And this is going to be applied to all the components and everything that use the theme of Material Y. And in this second image, we can see too how to apply this theme. We can use the component provided from Material Y, call theme provider. We pass this theme, and this is the place you make all that logic if you want to show the dark or the light theming, or if you want to have different theming for different brands, for example, inside of your project, you pass here the different themings you want, and will affect the whole application and the whole look. And the third image is to show how to specifically style the components. In the documentation, you can find a lot of ways to style these components. And you can find the names specific, like the classes for this component that you can use here. In this example, I'm styling the MUI button, and you can override props styling directly here, like very straightforward. And you can even change the full props here. So if, for example, your component has like rounded borders as a default that they use the name square, you can set up for true or false depending on what to expect. So the theming part is a very important part for the process of creating your your UI with your own brand styling and look. So it's very powerful and very useful, and gonna affect a lot of the components. Okay, so let's how use TypeScript with Material Y theming and all Material Y. So it's kind of simple. They are already implemented, all the TypeScript, they provide everything for us. But when you are adding, for example, in the previous slide, like a new prop, you need to add this to the you need to declare the module that's specific, use the theme, and set up and create these props, because this will allow us to use the best experience that TypeScript can provide us. And we can even come here and like they have a default prop that is the primary button. And we can come here and block this and set up this to pause, and nobody can use, gonna give errors on the compiling. So this is the place to style all this, like to allow which props we are allowing, which props we are not allowing in the components. So it's very useful to organize the project and say what is necessary, what is not, and customize new props that you're gonna use inside of our components. Okay, so how to style these MUI components? Like we style before on the theming, like a lot of basic companies looks we did there, but here we need maybe like one component that look a little different from the default, and we can do this in different ways. Material UI provides us the MUI system props, mostly on box and stack components. It's the ones that have more these props directly, like the height, the gap, the direction, and padding and margin directly as props, you can pass these values. But we have to the SX prop too, that is a more open uh, approach that we can add classes inside. We can uh, make any change that we could do with CSS, we can do inside of SX. So give us more freedom. But has a little bad side effect is that if you are really, really into like making a very big performance uh, styling, maybe the SX is not the best approach because it takes like 3 times the time that a normal class would be to handle this component. But it's not something that will really affect any performance of the application. But just so you know that the benchmarks show that it's a little more longer the process to handle the SX than other types of styling. But they are working on this, so maybe in the future will not be so different. But normally you don't see any difference on the components on normal applications. Okay, so you can do two reusable components styling. So you can use this stylet function from MUI. That side works almost like emotions, that because emotions is the default styling for MUI, that you when you are styling MUI, you have to install 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 emotions together. So it's very similar the way they do the styling, and you can create any style you want, passing the props for the CSS and everything, and you can use this as a component, and you can export it and use it in many different places you want. It's very good to create reusable components with many childrens in a different composition. Okay, so I was showing a lot like how uh, the documentation of the MUI normally suggests us to style everything with the full props that they already provide, with SX they already provide in a styling similar to emotions, and they suggest us to use emotion, but we can have a freestyle mode that you can use other ways to style. We can use Tailwind, we can pass classes with Tailwind for the components, super works super fine. And plain CSS2, you can create a file, style the CSS, and pass as class for your component too, gonna work too. So it's and other possibilities is always possible. So Material give us like guidelines how they suggest us to do it, but they don't say like you have to do in this way. And you can work in different approach. And but has a little trick thing is that this server-side handling. That specifically, if your project is with Gatsby or Next, or is being server-side handled, like MUI was made thinking about this already, so they give full support for it, but specifically, Stylet components library doesn't work with server-side handling. So if you want to do SSR, you need to find other approaches. Emotions is very similar to Stylet components and is a very good alternative on these cases. Okay, let's go to Storybook for customized components. This is a very interesting tool to give like for the team, for the product, for the designer, for like a way to look the components you are working on and how to, and you can go there on the Storybook and change some props and see how it's gonna look like, how it's gonna respond. And this is very interesting for this point of view, but it's very interesting from the point of view of development because we have a place that is isolated from the application that doesn't depend on any context. And we can develop these components there and see how it's going to work depending just on the props. So it's a very good place for doing that. But we can do that using two Material UI. So I show here an example of this base configuration of Storybook. You can use the theme provider from MUI inside of Storybook, provide the theme exactly the same theme that you are providing for your normal application. and you're going to style all your components. And you can use inside of Storybook the theme too, so you can access like theme dot spacing and use the spacing you want. The theme dot palette and dot primary color or secondary, and use inside of Storybook too, like you can do on the normal application. And the components will be visible, so you can export and be reusable, and you can share with other people so they can all see what options of components we already have styled. Thank you for your attention, and I think we're going to go now for the questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Thais, for sharing what you know. Yes, we have received some questions in our chat. I'm just going to go over to a chat and read them to you. So, Christian asks, hey, Thais, does development time significantly increase when comparing the use of an unstyled component library like Base UI to creating components from scratch for the project?
Yes, for sure. This is gonna be a very different time because creating components from scratch normally is a lot time consuming, like a lot. And most times it's difficult for us to like in a project, they give us time to do that, to create a component. It's very good from scratch. Think about accessibility, about responsivity, like to mobile and to desktop. So it's not we normally don't have all this time in the project. We need to make fast deliveries. And in this scenario, we probably would make like more simple components that doesn't have all the possibilities like an styled library could provide us. In this case, Base UI, that is from Material UI, no, from MUI, that provide these components with all this logic, and it's accessible and it's very responsive. So it's like 10 times more, like, I don't know, it depends a lot on the component, but it's a lot more expensive and in matter of time to create your components from scratch, mostly the complex ones, like a menu with different levels, autocomplete, search. So mostly this type of components. Maybe a button would be not so different, but complex components, it is.
Okay. Thank you so much for your recommendations. And we have another question. Daniela asks, thanks, Thais. I would like to know if it is possible to utilize material design or MUI components with Angular, Vue, or other alternatives aside from React.
Yes, it's possible. Not with MUI products, not with Base UI or Material UI specifically, but Google's already developed Angular material that uses the material design guidelines too, and provide the components like Material UI does for React. So it's possible to use the same guidelines, but not the same library of components. And other frameworks and library also have their version of material design components and guidelines.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, we have a comment in our chat coming from Christian. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, Thais. And well, that is it for today. Once again, thank you so much, Thais, for sharing what you know. Thank you all for joining our Lunch and Learn series, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and like the video. Bye.